Black immigrants are more successful than Black Americans because they outwork us. I said it. Now, I have seen this over and over and over again. If I'm dealing with a Black person in any sort of business capacity, you're dealing with people who do not show up on time. You're dealing with people who do not treat their business like a business. They treat it as like, some side project and, you just broke, man. And, I don't have to give you good service. I don't have to be on time. I don't have to show up like a true professional.
When Africans come to America, they're busting their behinds to get degrees, become doctors, lawyers, and stuff like that. So when Africans look at African Americans, they're like, these people have credit cards. We don't even have credit cards. These people are not even working, and we come here and we busting our asses. Now we're doing this. We're now six figures, and these people have all these years to become all these great jobs and careers. Yeah, this is the conversation. It's like, y'all have all this time to get free money, free loans, and we don't get that back at home.
Yeah, but y'all get that when y'all come here, though.
Exactly, and guess what? We're right here, and y'all are still here.
There's a lot.
Exactly. Let me fix my eye better. And this is my main point. I'm not saying that America is racist. I'm just saying that there are people that have been affected by the course of history. And now that everything is leveled, they have a harder time to catch up. And us African, probably when we come from another continent and come here, and in the same playing field, we manage to be successful. So yeah, I agree.
Because if you fled from your homeland as a man, and you say, look how much I'm doing better over here than you Black Americans. You're not doing better than us Black Americans. Look at what you're celebrating. Especially Myron. How are you really doing better? Think about this. What, because you have a show on the internet? You know how many Black Americans got shows? What, you had a Homeland Security job? You know how many Black Americans work for the federal government? Even still to this day, they work in the federal government, federal law enforcement. What do you really have that Black Americans have not achieved? That's why I always tell them, like, how are you doing better? Okay, you went to school. You know how many Black Americans got degrees? Well, we do better. How you do better? Well, we got great jobs. And you know how many Black Americans got great jobs? Like, I still haven't found out how you're doing better. That's what I'm saying. Don't come here like acting like you're doing better than Black Americans. You're not. It's not enough for you two. Well, I'm a doctor. I'm a lawyer, and we got Black American doctors and lawyers. Like, what are you doing that we haven't done? And why are you trying to compare yourself to us? Just, man, come here, get your paper, and enjoy yourself, brother, sister. That's it. You ain't got to compare yourself to us.
Hello, and what's up, good people? What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel, and I hope you're doing great from wherever you're watching this video from. Now, you see, this argument, this war, if I might call it war, between Africans and Black Americans of who is better is one conversation that I usually find it so hard to ignore. But from my observation and my perspective, this argument is usually marred with a lot of ignorance and misunderstanding, and sometimes a lot of disrespect. You know, every time Africans in America, the African immigrants, are praised for becoming like doctors, engineers, and business owners, somebody will turn around and say, see, they came here and made it. Why can't Black Americans do the same? And it baffles me. And just like that, we are arguing, we are fighting. It's African versus Black Americans. It's immigrants versus natives. But really, before we pick sides and to be, just unbiased in this conversation, we need to take it a little bit slow, because this debate is missing context. It does not have context at all. And without the context, this comparison doesn't add up to a fair comparison. It becomes more like manipulation. So this is a very interesting conversation that I want us to try and have in this video. And if you are interested in this conversation, please watch this video to the end. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and let's watch these videos, and I'll be back with some more good commentary.
So there's a conversation that keeps popping up online, and it always sounds the same. Africans come to America, get degrees, become doctors, engineers, and lawyers. They build businesses. They buy homes. They hustle. And then somebody says, why can't African Americans do the same thing? You all have been here all this time. You've had grants, loans, scholarships, opportunities. What are you doing? And then the other side fires back and says, hold on, immigrants get opportunities we don't get. The system treats them differently. And just like that, we're in a fight. But before we pick sides, let's slow this down a bit, because there are facts here, and then there are some assumptions as well. So, first fact, many African immigrants in the United States are highly educated. Nigerians, Ghanaians, Kenyans. Consensus data shows some of the highest degree attainment rates in the country. That's real. But what doesn't quite get said out loud, immigration, at least to the US, is very selective. You don't randomly show up in America on a student visa or a skilled worker visa. You qualify. You're vetted. You often already have an education, English proficiency, financial backing, or professional credentials before you land. So we're not comparing average populations here. We're comparing a pre-selected group of high achievers to a population whose history in this country began with enslavement. That's not really a fair baseline. Now let's deal with the other claim. Are immigrants getting special grants or free money that African Americans can't access? Broadly speaking, no. Federal aid like Pell Grants and student loans are available to citizens and eligible non-citizens. In many cases, new immigrants don't even qualify for certain benefits immediately. Undocumented immigrants definitely don't. So the idea that there's some secret pipeline of government money just flowing to African immigrants over Black Americans doesn't hold up under policy reality. But here's where it gets a bit deeper. African Americans aren't just Americans who didn't try. We are descendants of people who were legally blocked from building generational wealth for centuries. Slavery, black codes, Jim Crow, redlining, exclusion from home loans, underfunded schools, mass incarceration. And if you think about it, that's not even ancient history. Redlining maps existed into the late 60s. Some of your grandparents, definitely my grandparents, were directly affected by that. You can't compare outcomes without comparing starting lines. Now, here is the uncomfortable truth on the other side. Some African immigrant communities place extreme emphasis on professional careers. Doctor, engineer, lawyer, nurse. Failure is not an option. The cultural pressures produce results, but culture doesn't form in a vacuum. African Americans were historically pushed into labor pipelines, not professional pipelines. When you're locked out of universities for generations, your economic patterns evolve differently. That's not laziness. That's structural shaping. And then there's the psychological layer that nobody wants to talk about. Many African immigrants arrive with intact cultural identity. They know their tribe, their language, their lineage. African Americans had that violently stripped away. That identity disruption truly matters. Confidence, community cohesion, social networks, those things compound over time. Now here's the part that truly bothers me personally. Once you're in America, the police officer doesn't ask if you're from Ghana or Chicago before making assumptions. The broader society doesn't distinguish as much as we do. So while we're arguing about who works harder, we're both navigating the same racial perception system. And if you ask me, that's where the real questions live. Why are we even fighting each other over who deserves more credit? Instead of asking why two groups with shared ancestry were shaped so differently by history and policy. Because here's what I see. Immigration selection bias plus American racial history equals a comparison that was never built to be fair in the first place. And when that comparison gets weaponized, it becomes a political tool. One group made it, so systemic racism must not be true. That argument sounds clean, but it ignores centuries of accumulated disadvantage. At the same time, we also can't ignore agency, discipline, education, cultural expectations. Those matter too. This isn't about making excuses. It's about understanding context. So if I can get back to my original point, if Africans succeed in America, that's something to be celebrated. If African Americans succeed despite centuries of systemic barriers, that is something to respect by all. But turning this into a competition, that's just a distraction. The real conversation isn't who works harder. It's what systems shaped each other differently. And what do we do about it now? Because if we normalize comparing outcomes without comparing history, we keep arguing in this vicious cycle. And the structure that shaped both experiences will stay untouched.
Why do they go somewhere and tend to excel amongst people who also have gone through it?
Because you're not comparing like with like, that's why.
Okay.
A lot of us think we are comparing like with like. You're not. Let me explain. Generally speaking, Caribbeans in America, not the ones in the Caribbean, but the ones in America, will represent the top 10%.
I see.
So if you're really going to compare like with like, you have to compare the top 10% of Caribbeans with the top 10% of African Americans.
Okay.
And when you compare the two, the African Americans are slaughtering us, bro. It's not even close. It's a massacre. But what it is we compare the top 10% with your average African American. You're not comparing like with like. And if you compare your average African American, you're 51, you got 1 to 100 and Mr. number 51. Number 51 is richer by a factor of 20 than your average Jamaican. Do you see? So what happens is it's a perception thing. Now let's be clear. We can all point to people from outside America. Go to America and rise. Yeah. Colin Powell did that. Kamala Davy Harris has done that, whatever. But you can't pretend that's typical. Do you see?
Yeah.
But what happens is because we live in a world where people don't really have full pictures, you can take the exception, use that to smack around African Americans' faces. This guy just got off the boat. He's doing better than you. Not realizing, but for my man to have got on the boat in the first place, he wasn't typical of the country that he was coming from. He was in the top echelons of that country. Do you see?
Yeah.
And the same is true also with people from Africa going to Black America. So if we're going to compare the top 10%, let's compare the top 10%. And when we do that, African Americans are slaughtering us.
So there's a lot of talk about immigrants just coming over here and doing so much better than Black Americans. First of all, they compare us to everybody. They put us in a pot with everybody. Y'all comparing us against a bunch of different people from different countries and different ethnic backgrounds. We are one group of people from one country. Let's start there. Comparing us to Ethiopians, Kenyans, Nigerians, Jamaicans, Bohemians, Middle Easterns, Egyptians, Ukrainians, motherfucking blood clot, Japanese, Asians, Chinese. Like, that's absolutely insane. Let's just start there. Second of all, we've faced systemic racism in this country. I think this goes over a lot of you all's head. We've literally been economically disenfranchised. Y'all really don't understand because you have not gone through it. You, with your immigrant self, you were able to come into a system where you have rights, you have certain freedoms and liberties that you are afforded and awarded because of the plight and the fight of Black Americans. You didn't have to fight for anything. And because of your immigrant status, you already come in with a clean slate. A lot of you will identify as a pale face on your documentations. You have a clean bill of credit. Your social security or whatever type of EIN, whatever type of number you're using, it's not the same. We literally are just playing by a different set of rules. Through all of that, you all still are not doing better than us. You're not. We have millionaires, billionaires, people that are making high six figures, people that are making low six figures, people that are college educated. We've gone through the gauntlet. And a lot of what we've gone through, you all were actually able to hijack our civil rights movement and turn it into an immigration movement. So you should be thanking us instead of trying to compete and compare, because we've been in this country since the inception and we've continuously fought. We've continuously built. We've continuously, honed in on our skill sets. What the hell have y'all been doing in y'all's country that you all govern? Y'all ain't been living side by side, neck with oppressors that's literally been trying to unalive you for centuries. Yet you have to come here to piggyback off of our accomplishments of Black Americans, the ones that y'all love to look down on and talk down on. You have to migrate here and then slap us in the face and say, we built the country, y'all ain't ish. Why y'all not doing this? Why y'all ain't doing that? As if systemic racism wasn't a thing, as if some of those policies and some of those ideologies are not still in full effect.
That is an absolutely diabolical claim to make. I mean, she sat there and said that I guess Africans are saying that we don't work. They come over here and then they get all these degrees and they, to become a doctor and a lawyer and blah, 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 blah. And what I noticed about a lot of African immigrants, or just immigrants in general, it's not even always just the Africans, they only like to compare themselves to a certain demographic of Black Americans. Like, they only pay attention and focus in their vision the stereotypical Black American that they either see on TV or that they read about or that they gossip about. They only pay attention to those Black Americans, to the ones that are living in poverty. They never pay attention. They never make mention to the multitudes of Black Americans who are very educated. Black American women are very highly educated. I know so many nurses. I know Black millionaires personally myself that live here in Cleveland. I have friends that make money into the six figures. So it's like, they only want to pay attention to the ones who are doing less than they are.
Yeah, this is the conversation. It's like, y'all have all this time to get free money, free loans, and we don't get that back at home.
Yeah, but y'all get that when y'all come here, though.
Exactly, and guess what? We're right here, and y'all are still here.
There's a lot of...
It's like, once again, another just absolutely diabolical statement. Like, we're up here and you guys are down here. Who are you comparing yourself to? Why can't you compare your numbers to our millionaires? Why don't you compare your salary to our millionaires? Make that comparison. And then there's a massive gap between the number of Black American, natural born Black Americans that live in this country, 40 million plus, than actual sub-Saharan African immigrants. There's a huge difference. Everybody from Africa doesn't come over here. Like, everybody is not going to be successful anyway. Like, I don't understand. It's almost like they feel like in order for them to elevate or to feel above, they have to put their foot on top of us and try to put us down lower so they can feel higher. That's what it sounded like to me. And like, I've been to West Africa before. I went to Ghana before, right? So I've seen firsthand the differences in a lot of the lifestyle, the poverty, and things like that. And when Black Americans go and visit like African countries, they're not coming back over here telling each other like, man, those Africans, man, they lazy, man. They countries they got slums all over. They don't even have electricity that runs all day. They don't even have air conditioners. Their running water doesn't stay on. It doesn't stay hot or whatever. The pipe systems are fucked up. Half the time you can't find a damn public bathroom. Like, they're not coming back here complaining. They're coming back here like, wow, the food was amazing. It's natural. The people are friendly. It's cool. But they could easily do what y'all do what the Africans do, come over here and pick and pinpoint all of the negatives and say, oh, well, Africans, they're all lazy because their country is fucked up because they never, pulled themselves up by their bootstraps after colonialism, after the Europeans left or whatever. Like, they could easily just say that, but that's not a fair statement because you don't have the full story. So that's the reason why when Black people from America visit like African countries, third world countries, they're not coming back and talking all that shit because they know that there's a big piece to that story. There's a lot of history there that we really can't speak on. But yet when they come over here, they feel like they have something to prove, and they feel like, oh, well, I guess they're better than us because she was saying another part of the video.
Black Americans are in their own bowl as well. Like, that's what I'm saying.
That's why Africans feel that way, because they feel like because you don't know where you come from, which is not by fault by Africans.
We know where we come from. We come from America, just like Jamaicans.
I guess it's just more.
We already know our culture and we know where we come from and blah, 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 blah. Like, it's just very disingenuous, I'll say.
Okay. Now, first, here is a fact. Many African immigrants in the US today are highly educated people. The Nigerians, the Ghanaians, and the Kenyans, the South Africans. Statistics have consistently shown the high levels of degree attainment in these immigrant communities. That's real. That's a fact. But here is the part that almost nobody wants to say it out loud. Immigration to the US in itself basically is very selective. And this is since the Immigration and Nationality Act of is it 1965 or 1964 thereabout. The US immigration policy has largely prioritized like skilled labor, education, family sponsorship, and employment-based visas to the US. In simple terms, what we are saying here is America doesn't just import these people or import immigrants, not only African immigrants, but all immigrants. It does not just import randomly. The system filters, selectively people with degrees, people with specialized skills, people with some financial backing of some sort, and people who are qualified or can qualify. So when we say, look at how successful African immigrants are, we are often looking at a group of people that is already pre-selected even before they arrive in the United States of America. There are usually people that are actually vetted in the US embassies, in the various US embassies in their countries before they come to the US. And many of those that then don't qualify or attain the qualification, they're left out. So basically, this is the cream de la cream, the top of the top, and that's not an insult, that's structure. Now compare that to the Black Americans or African Americans. I can use that interchangeably in this video. Their story basically starts with slavery, then it moves to segregation under Jim Crow, then redlining, then mass incarceration, and then systemic exclusion from wealth building opportunities. That is, if you look at where those two groups are starting from, they are completely different starting points. So when someone ignorantly says you've been here for 400 years, what do you have to show for it? That ignorant assumption or a statement really ignores history deliberately. And then maybe we need some balance here. It would be dishonest for me and for other people to argue and pretend that immigrants don't hustle, because they do. Immigration in itself is a risk. Imagine leaving the comfort of your home, the comfort of your country, and it takes courage. Starting all over again in a foreign land with foreign and strange things and strange people in itself requires discipline. Many African immigrants arrive with the survival mentality. And I want us to understand that this survival mentality is good, but in some cases, it's dangerous. These people, they come and they know they have, in many cases, one shot and just one shot at it. That pressure alone can actually produce excellence. So, and when I say about the survival mentality immigrants arrive with it to the US can be good and dangerous, is because the good side is it pushes these people to make use of the only one shot they have. But then in other cases, then you realize that immigrants are always accused by Black Americans of leaning towards the white power structure. Now, this is also about the survival mentality. They come to the US, they already have preconceived notions of the US, and they think US is a white man's land, and they find that the white man controls most of the system, is in power, and because these people are here for the power, the money, something better, they tend to go to lean towards where they think they can get the money first before they get back home. Now, these people arrive without a lot of information, and sometimes they arrive with the wrong information, deliberately sent, taught to them by, by the systems from where they come from. So this isn't about dismissing immigrant success generally, but it's about understanding the different variables, the different starting points, and the different histories of these two groups, the Black Americans on one side and the African immigrants, by extension, all other immigrants in one other side. Because here is a deeper layer that people either avoid, don't understand, or I don't know. But that the America of today that most immigrants walk into is totally not the same as the America of that Black Americans were born into generations ago. Going back to before the 1960s, the US immigration law heavily favored white people. It still does today. And if it does today, with all the struggles that have been there and the victories that have been won in the civil rights movements and the civil rights era, if all those, and still we see the laws try to favor white people, how about before the 1960s? It was during the civil rights era, alongside the Civil Rights Acts of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act, that America really opened up broadly to the rest of the world. And to be honest, these laws didn't just appear from nowhere. These freedoms that people are enjoying today didn't just come from nowhere. They came from the struggles of Black Americans, from the marches, from the arrest, from the bloodsheds, and so these were victories that were won by Black Americans. People like MLK, Malcolm X, and ordinary Black Americans who risked their lives for all that, all other minority groups, including the immigrants, are enjoying today. So these victories really reshaped America. They didn't just benefit Black Americans. In any case, they benefited any minority group that came thereafter. Workplace protections, anti-discrimination laws, access to school or universities, legal recourse against racism in most cases. So yes, it's historically accurate to say that many of the freedom that immigrants and minorities enjoy today in America was secured through the sacrifices of Black Americans. And you see, for me, I don't think that's ego. That's history. That's lived experience. That's something that's happened. And now that does not mean that. Does that mean that immigrants owe Black Americans something? No, maybe respect. But it does mean that the narrative that Black Americans did nothing while immigrants did everything is deeply, deeply dishonest, inaccurate, and disrespectful. Black Americans fought to expand democracy in America, and immigrants arrived into the expanded democracy in America. Who fought for it? The Black Americans. So both realities can actually exist at the same time. Here is the real problem, though. We keep comparing selectively admitted immigrant population to an entire multi-generational population shaped by centuries of policy and oppressive policy, for that matter. And then you find that that's not a fair comparison. It's like comparing the top slice of a filtered system to the full complexity of a historical community. And when we do that, now we pit these people against each other. We create division. We create the war and the misunderstanding. African immigrants might start feeling superior and more successful, while the Black Americans or the African Americans might start feeling disrespected because you can't come and enjoy all the freedoms I fought for and make me look like I didn't do anything, and that the system quietly benefits from this division. And that's something that we all don't now understand. All parties are very, very ignorant to this fact that the moment Black Americans are fighting Africans or any other minority, the system is just getting exploited. It's just a distraction. So different starting points, different pressures, and different histories, but the struggle for dignity is really the same. If Africans and African Americans or Black Americans are going to move forward in any form of solidarity, the conversation has to mature, has to graduate from these minor accusations and counter accusations. Immigrants should understand the historical groundwork that made modern America very accessible to all of them, and respect doesn't weaken either side. In fact, it does strengthen both sides, because at the end of the day, the bigger issue here isn't who is better. It's whether we recognize how the system shapes the different outcomes, and whether we are mature enough to stop letting comparisons and meaningless comparisons like this divide all of us for the benefit of the system, because when we argue about who deserves more credit, we forget something important. The real goal isn't competition, it is collective advancement. What if we all win? And because we can, it's not about winning at the expense of someone else. That's a white supremacist mentality. So we need to start arguing on the basis of how do we all win all together, respectively, and that this collective advancement mentality now requires context, requires honesty, and most importantly, I think it also requires respect for each other. Yeah, so that's my 2 cents take on this. Do share with me what you think about this. If you like this, give it a thumbs up, share it, and please subscribe to the channel if you haven't, or if you're new here, and I'll see you in the next video.